Do we sound okay? Yeah. Sound good? Awesome. Hello, testing. Okay, friends, thank you all for being so patient and waiting for us. There's obviously so much traffic to get to here, and Surrey is just crazy with this construction, so we wanted to give everyone enough time to get in here. Thank you so much for being here. Hi. Yesterday we had a sitting as well, and it was a room full of so many cute brown girls, and it's obviously the same today as well. With the exception, though, we have a lot more men in the room today, so thank you for being here. We love that. Yay! Were you gonna say something? No. Okay, so before we begin, I just want to acknowledge the shared unceded traditional territory of the Katsi, Semiahmoo, Kwantlen, and other Coast Salish people on whose land that we get to work, play, learn, and get to tell our powerful stories, create magic, and experience community. And that's exactly what we're going to do here today. So I just want to give a shout out to Decibel Entertainment for partnering with us and hosting us here. This is their warehouse, this is their space. And so if at any point you need to move around, you need to take care of yourself, you can do that. It doesn't have to be as rigid and formal at all. If you need to use the bathroom, just get up and go. It's just down the stairs and then turn to the left, and that's the first door. We also have water on the table over there, so if at any time Pammy makes you laugh like real hard and you need to drink water, no, you set your expectations like please help yourself. I'm going to introduce myself, and I have to read my bio because I still don't know who I am. I'm Harpo. I'm a visionary, thought leader, community builder, storyteller, and cultural producer. It's quite a mouthful. My mission is to be the vessel through which you experience love. I'm a brown girl who adores being a brown girl, and I'm navigating and unpacking my own brown girl guilt. I love conversations like the one Pammy and I are going to have here. Creating space, taking space, and cultivating space. I'm also the general manager for Artsvest, which is the amazing organization behind today's event, and the host of the Brown Girl Guilt podcast that I'm representing here today. And the person to my left needs literally no introduction. I sent her 3 lines compared to my paragraph. This is Pammy. Everyone say hi, Pammy. Hi, guys.
Hi, Pammy.
So Pammy is born and raised in Calgary. She's out here in Surrey for the week. Woo, go Surrey! She's a self-proclaimed funny girl, and we're all going to find out that she's funny for us as well. We think she's funny as well. Producer and host of the Coaches Don't Play podcast. Listeners tune in to hear about relatable banter about life, relationships, and current events. Yes. That's Coaches Don't Play in a nutshell. So, why are we here? So the title of today's event is 5X Podcast, The Power of Storytelling. And so why storytelling? And it's because storytelling is powerful. It's super important. I feel like storytelling really humanizes us. It brings us together. It binds us in community. And it really curbs isolation. So if you really think about if you've ever heard the Coaches Don't Play podcast, the Brown Girl Guilt podcast, and realized, wow, I'm not the only one. That's exactly what storytelling does. It makes us feel like we're not the only ones. And I think storytelling is so diverse. It can be, story can be told in so many different ways. It can be the clothes that you wore, like the outfit that you chose to walk in here with today can be a story, the music that you produce, the painting you paint, or the podcast that you host. And so storytelling can be done in so many different ways. And both of us up here are phenomenal storytellers, if I could say so myself.
Yes, we are.
So you've been here for how many days now? You've been here since?
I've been here since Sunday morning.
Yeah,
I'm leaving tomorrow.
And so how is Surrey treating you so far?
It's great. I love it here. I used to come here as a kid every summer, so I have these childhood warm memories being here. So yeah, it just takes me back to that.
Love that. Yeah, Surrey loves you. I don't know if you've been spotted. Have you been spotted throughout the week?
I havenent. I was I'm gonna get a floor organized over there. We're gonna go crazy. One person came up to me.
Good, your incognito is working. So like I mentioned, there's so many brown girls here, and I love being a brown girl. That's a huge part of my identity. And your Instagram bio says a comedy podcast by a brown girl. Talk to me about the importance of highlighting brown girl in your work.
Yeah, so it was more a strategic thing, to be honest. It wasn't I need my identity. It wasn't like that. It was so many girls have podcasts, so if I just put comedy podcast by girl, it wasn't, I was I need more downloads, so I needed to put a brown girl so that brown people know like, oh, that's a brown girl? Okay, this is probably gonna be relatable. So that's why I initially did it. And then recently I changed the podcast description from brown girl to Punjabi Canadian girl. Then that was after the farmers' protest. I was like, I just wanna like put that in there. That Punjabi part needs to be in there, so yeah. But yeah, so I guess that came a little bit later.
Yeah, and I think it's, I think about that all the time in the work that I do as well. Like sometimes I'll catch myself saying South Asian and I'm like, but it's not really South Asian. It's not representative of everybody. It's really representative of me as a Punjabi person, right? As a Punjabi brown girl, not just a brown girl.
Yeah, 100%. And even just like everything that we say on the podcast, like the slang we use, the one-liners, like those, it's so Punjabi specific. So I felt like it was really important to put that in there.
Yeah, definitely. Someone keeps trying to get me to share the Wi-Fi password on the phone, so stop it. Whoever it is, stop it. So I think what really works for both the podcasts, whether it's the Brown Girl Guild podcast or the Coaches Don't Play podcast, is relatability. I think both podcasts are so relatable. They're so familiar. When I listen to the Coaches Don't Play podcast, it just feels like I'm hanging out with my cousins. Like literally that's how it feels. It's so familiar. Often I think like the things that we're talking about in both the podcasts are things that people haven't even said to themselves yet. Like it's something that they haven't even confronted within themselves, or it's something that they haven't felt comfortable sharing with somebody else. And yet here it is, like someone on a podcast, on a microphone, just some girl that was like, I'm gonna just set up a microphone and just become a podcast host is saying. Why do you think so many people gravitate towards the Coaches Don't Play podcast and in the ways that they do, where there was literally like a lineup downstairs and girls were here at like 5:30 on the dot, you know? Y'all have real homies for showing up, the real MVPs, yeah. So why do you think that happens?
I think it's for that exact reason, that it just feels like you're listening to your cousins or your friends like talk, and we don't really like edit ourselves too much, and there's not really a specific topic. Like we're just talking, like if you call your friend, you just have like a 15-minute conversation, like that's what it feels like. There's no like actual like, on today's episode we're gonna talk about this, and then the whole hour is that. It's just random stuff happening, everyday stuff, family stuff, like that type of stuff. So I think that's why people like really relate to it. And also the Coaches Huddle part, the anonymous form, I think people really enjoy that because it's like, it's like if you hear someone struggling through what you're going through, you feel like better about yourself. Like, oh yeah, my boyfriend cheated on me too. And like you just feel like better about yourself, right? Like I'm not the only person. Like I'm gonna be okay. Like same struggle. So I think that also like that part of it as well is like super comforting to people. And also one more thing, I think it's so lighthearted. I think that's another thing as well, is like we're online nowadays and we just see so much negative stuff all the time. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, just like negativity everywhere, and just to be able to shut your brain off for like an hour a week and just, you know, if you're having a bad day, whatever it is, and you could just laugh or even just have like a little like chuckle, it's just like, okay, my day's not that bad. So I think that's probably why people really like it.
Yeah, as someone who's like a chronic overthinker, the fact that I can turn my brain off for an hour when I'm listening to your podcast is like free therapy. Yeah. It really is, to just turn my brain off. I was saying that to you at dinner yesterday too. I'm like, I was going through something and then you guys were talking about the Kardashians and how dumb they are, and I was like, yeah, they're so dumb. My problems don't matter in this world. It's literally what it feels like.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, if only insurance would like, you know, bill, like work would cover it for you guys so I can get paid. You can make millions.
Love that. Have you ever been told that it's too niche? Have you ever been like told that it's like, especially for the community that really resonates with it, have you been told that it's too niche?
Yeah, I have been told it's too niche. So when I was starting out, I booked a consultation with like this like person who does like marketing, and I don't even know why. She's like, you know, like in Calgary, she's like a goatee. And I was like, what do I do to be famous? And she's just like, yeah, you need to really like, you know, to go global, you have to, like, you need to be on Twitch, and you need to do this, and you need to talk about like more general like things. And I'm just like, are you guys on Twitch? No. Like nobody's on Twitch, like we're not on Twitch.
On Twitch. No.
So I felt like she was giving like the messaging a little bit, like you need to like be a little bit more, your topics need to be a little bit more like open to more different types of people. And I tried that for a little bit, and I actually did believe her. I was like, you know what, she's probably right. Like, if I do want to go global, I need to be, appealing to like all different types of people. But I couldn't do it. Like, every time we go on the podcast, I'm like, oh, hot budget, mana the movie. Like, I just always went back to that. So like, I can't do it authentically. I feel like it would be so fake. So I'm just continuing to do it. But I met a girl like yesterday who's saying that her Egyptian coworker loves the podcast. I was like, oh, okay, cool, it's working.
Yeah, and I remember asking like a really prominent South Asian painter in our community who paints a lot of like illustrations of Punjabi women in her art, and I said to her, I'm like, my podcast, like right in the name, it's a giveaway that it's for brown girls, and it's very specific and niche. And I said, do you think I should broaden it? And she was like, absolutely not. Like, there can be one thing in the world that's just for us, and it's not a big deal, And so I'm not gonna not do it for brown girls, right?
Yeah. It just doesn't feel real, and I think that's the part of the podcast. It feels so authentic, it feels real. So if I do that, it's just not going to be the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So take me back to the beginning. Where did this start from? Where did the idea for Coaches Don't Play come from? And did you ever like think that this is what was going to happen from it?
No, absolutely not. Did I think I was going to be sitting here right now 2 shows? No, absolutely not. But it started like, I was always doing Instagram, like, stories and like makeup stuff, and like I really enjoyed that, but I liked the part that it would like be on Instagram stories and disappear after 24 hours, because I just didn't like my face out there. I'm still kind of like that. I have like this weird insecurity about it. So I was like, I want to do something where I can like, talk shit, and like just my face is not showing. So like podcasting was perfect for that, because it's just audio, so I could just be myself 100% and not have to worry about like, oh, my face is showing, I look so weird, blah blah blah. So that was the idea, like kind of like, I'm like, I could do this. And then I started listening to podcasts, and I remember in 2019 I was going through like some stuff, and I would just drive in the car and listen to like podcasts, and I would just laugh, and I would be like, oh, I can feel better now. So that was like, you know what, if I can just start like a funny little thing, like maybe it could do well. But I honestly thought, like, if you guys have been listening since day one, I thought there would be like 17 people listening. Like, I did not think that this was gonna happen.
Yeah, there's obviously more than 17.
Way more than 17, yeah.
Yeah, there's 15 here that listen, at least, right? Yeah, it's interesting, like, even when I started the Brown Girl Guilt podcast, I never was like, I'm gonna start a podcast. Like, it wasn't like that. Someone actually told me that, like, the concept and the idea of it is so interesting and so unique that maybe I should make it into a podcast. Yeah. And then, I never imagined, like, yesterday's show, like, some girl pulled me to the side, and I went to say hello to her, and she started bawling her eyes out. She's like, you have no idea what the podcast means to me. And I was like, see, like, I never anticipated that. And you never know, like, you just never know when you start something where it's gonna end up and how it's gonna impact somebody.
Yeah, 100%. I did not think it was gonna be like this. I thought it was gonna stop. Like, I was like, I'm gonna run out of things to talk about. I still think that every week. I'm like, what am I gonna talk about next week? I don't know. Like, so when there's like something crazy in the news, I'm like, okay, thank God. Or like when or something happens, I'm like, oh my God, thank God. People are doing crazy stuff, yes.
Yeah,
keep doing it.
I was gonna say, lucky for you, brown people are always doing wild shit.
Yeah. So great, you guys provide great content. Just keep doing it.
The misery of all of our lives.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hilarious. So, I mean, although even in your podcast, you're not necessarily centering yourself, right? It's not your stories. You're sharing other people's stories. What's funny is, like, even this idea of, like, being a coach, right? Yeah. So, like, the coach of a basketball team likely has been to a championship already, like, knows what they're doing, right? So you as a coach, even though you're not centering your stories, I feel like we really respond to things, and they're informed by our own experiences. Yeah. So I feel like you've played the game a little bit. That's what I'm assuming. Because otherwise, how else does your feedback, like, how do you really become the coach in this setting? Like, how do you have so much advice to give? Is it because you have been to the championship yourself? Like,
no, I don't. I'm not playing you guys. I'm definitely not like oh my God, I have so much life experience, and I'm sharing it. I don't. I'm literally talking shit. Like, that's literally what I'm doing. Like, Graveen is on there. She has like her actual life experience, and then like I'm just on there like making comments. I feel like a lot of the advice stuff that I give is just, it's like vanilla answers and things that we're all thinking, but no one, like, we don't say it to our close friends because we don't want to hurt their feelings or whatever, and we don't know who's submitting into the form, so we just say whatever we say, however we say, like we don't filter ourselves. So it's very like common sense answers, but just like with roasting thrown in there, just like our one-liner, just like any crazy thought that we're having. And same thing with like Girk, like people love Girk's advice, but his advice is very common sense, but it's because he roasts the people at the same time. And so I think like there's not like any, I feel so stupid saying this, but yeah, I don't have like real insight. It's not like it's not anything like super.
It's just
crazy.
not deep.
Yeah, it's just
not
like,
deep at all.
It's just like, you know, it's just like we're all thinking it. Every single person is thinking. Like your friend comes to you like, I need closure from my ex, and you're like, yeah, you do, but really you're like, oh, like, you know what I mean? So it's just like that.
Yeah. See, and then again, I think it goes back to that whole thing where it's just like you're literally with your homies. You're just shooting the shit, but you turn on a microphone.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly what it is.
Yeah. So I'm really curious about what you were like what I always think to myself, like what was Coach P like as a teenager? What were you like as a teenager? What were you like in your early 20s before the world knew you as like, the world, like Surrey, knew you as, not yet, almost there, but like before the world again, knew you as Coach P?
I was like the complete opposite person. I was like boy crazy. I was like so loud. I mean, I am loud, I guess, on the podcast, but in real life, I'm like really quiet, but I wasn't like that in my 20s. I loved going out. I loved clubbing. I loved traveling. So many friends. Like I talked to like boys all the time and stuff. And then I I turned all of that off. Like I had some stuff happen in my life. And then since the podcast, I feel like I'm slowly getting back into who that person was. And it is because of the podcast. Like because people receive that version of me so well, like that weird, like cackly laugh, and just like people love it, right? So I'm slowly getting back there. But this version of like the podcast version you guys hear, that is definitely who I was in my 20s, for sure.
Yeah, I think even for myself, like I was the girl that always got on her report card that she like talks too much all the time. And so like what my career is shaping up to be is like so fitting of who I am. So that's why I was wondering, like, were you always this person that like was really loud and talkative and someone who was expressive of her opinion no matter what it was?
Yeah, 100%. I even have this, like, when I used to laugh in high school, like around that time, my mom used to be like, you need to change your laugh. She's like, what are your in-laws gonna think? It's so bad, it's too loud. So yeah, like I was a very loud person, but I turned that off a little bit, but now I'm slowly getting back there. Now I don't care, I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah, it's always the baddies that like talks too much on a report card.
Yeah,
that's
like me.
Yeah. They always end up like being a star, you know what I mean? So yeah, if my kid ever got too much on a report card, I'd be like, yeah, keep going, keep talking, keep getting moved.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
So actually, I was gonna ask you something related to some of the submissions that you get. Do you feel like because you hear so many people's crazy dating stories that it's like putting you off from putting yourself out there and really experiencing all of that? Like, cause you hear some shit.
I do, yeah. No, I don't think that, that's not the reason. That's not the reason. I feel like I know that the stories that I hear on the podcast are the craziest of the crazy. Like, everyone is just living a normal life, right? But I curate that portion of the podcast to be the most insane, right? Like if now I'm like, I get a cheating story all the time, so I'm like, no, I'm not gonna put this on it, whatever, it's boring. I want the clickbaity stuff, so I read the most craziest stuff. I'm not gonna read like, oh, today, like my boyfriend took me out for such a nice dinner, like have a good day, like bye, it was great. Like that's not entertaining. So I know that the majority of us are living like normal lives and we're like happy, but like there's just that small section, the one that I like to highlight, that's not, yeah, so no, that's not putting me off, for sure. I don't think so.
Yeah. No, definitely available, single and ready to mingle.
No, not available. It's emotionally unavailable, for sure.
Are you aware of the impact that the podcast has? Like, are you, I mean, obviously, like we were saying, you didn't necessarily get spotted, but I'm sure people were talking, or they went home and said, like, guess who I saw at brunch, da-da-da. Are you aware of the impact of the podcast, and did you ever anticipate that it was going to be this much?
No, I didn't anticipate it, and I don't think I'm aware of it yet. Like when I talk to you guys, of course, like yesterday was crazy. Like that was, I think, the first time that I realized like how much people love it. But I don't think I've really understood it. Like I just see numbers. Like I'm just like, yeah, crazy downloads this week. Like that's all I see. But like when I get messages and I read them, I'm like, yeah, that's so great. That's so great. But like I don't really think I understand the extent of it. Like how because I'm like, the fact that people listen for like 1 hour a week to just someone talk is crazy. Like now everything's so fast because you're scrolling, right? TikTok, you're scrolling, Instagram, you're scrolling. It's like quick 5-second, 10-second videos. But to be sitting there in a car listening to someone talk for 40 minutes to an hour, and then some people binge the episodes, like you're listening to 5-6 in a row, like that's insane to me. So I can't even understand like how much people like love it, like just because they're hearing us so much. So I don't understand it yet. Like this is insane. Like this room, like being like full like this is crazy to me. But
yeah,
I didn't anticipate it.
And you guys sold the tickets out in like less than 12 hours.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy. Every single one of you was like on it. You know? Yeah. You know, earlier in my introduction of myself, I called myself a cultural producer. And did your battery turn up?
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay, shit. So I called myself a cultural producer, and the definition of a cultural producer is someone that like gives meaning to culture or like it contributes to the culture in a certain way, and that's how I truly see you as well in the Coaches Don't Play podcast. And the best example that I have is like the Sweet Bobby podcast, because I felt like no one in my life knew about it. It was so far removed. It was like something that was happening in a different part of the world. And then you listened to it or you talked about it, and that's it. Like all of Surrey was like, did you see like Pammy was talking about this podcast? And then it was like whispers. And so even though like you're not behind that podcast, but the way that it was, I guess like transmitted, that's such a bad word to use, but like the way that it was like spread across Surrey was because everybody was really paying attention to anything that you're paying attention to.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like it's so weird. Like sometimes it scares me a little bit because I'm like, what if I say something fucked up? like you know, like normal people, like you, like someone says something, maybe like 10, 20 people hear, but like 10,000, over 10,000 people are gonna hear. Like that scares me. I think if anything, I think that's my answer. It's the impact scares me. It does, yeah. Like everything scares me. So.
Yeah, truly, especially because of the cancel culture that we live in.
Yeah.
Right? Especially because it takes one thing for you to say something, whether you're speaking out of misalignment or misjudgment, or again, you were just talking shit, but it's so easy to get canceled in this day and age.
Yeah, I always talk about it. I'm just waiting for my scandal. I'm waiting for it to happen. Like, I know it's coming. I know. I wonder what it's going to be.
Who knows? We're going to have to stay tuned. Let's just hope you don't have a scandal.
Yeah.
But if you did, you know who would be the first to break it? The Coaches Don't Play podcast.
I would break it, yeah. I think it might be good, actually. It might be good for my numbers.
Masala was good.
Yeah. All press is good press, you guys.
So for the anonymous submissions, where did the idea come from? How did you, because it's so unique and so characteristic, and it's really like an anchor of your work. Where did the idea come from?
It's not unique, I don't think. I stole it from another podcast. No, my cousin reached out to me, and we used to listen to the Call Her Daddy podcast. I'm sure you guys heard of that one. So they have like a segment. They don't do it they never did it every episode, but they did it like a few times a month where they would get their listeners to like submit like questions so they answer it. And then I did it on the 5th or the 6th episode. It was called Cokeheads and Cheaters. And that whole episode was just like us answering questions, and we got 100 submissions that day. And I was like, yo, that's actually pretty good content. Like, so I just kept doing it every single week. But it was my cousin's idea, and then he also named it like the Coaches Huddle.
Yeah, it's obviously working. Yeah.
It's great.
Marketing. Love it. What's your favorite episode?
My favorite one, so I gave a different answer yesterday, but I changed my mind today. So my favorite episode is the hot garbage breath guy. When we went to New Orleans and we ran into this guy who was like talking to us, and like his breath was so bad. And I was, should I tell the story again? Yeah. Okay. And I was just like getting pissed. I'm like, why is this guy talking to us? And like, normally I wouldn't like get that mad, but I was getting extra mad because his breath smelled so bad. And then I was like internalizing it. I was like, does he think like we're the type of girls that are okay with bad breath? Like, what the hell does that say about me? So I was getting like extra mad, and he like wouldn't stop, and like then eventually like we were just like, you know, like pushing him out of like our circle, and the whole weekend we're like, oh my god, can you believe this guy's breath? It was so bad. And we just go on and on about it the whole weekend, and then 3 days go by, we're at the airport and no one's talking. It was like 5 a.m. and then my friend's like, you guys have to tell you something. And we're like, what? She's like, So it actually wasn't that guy's breath. As soon as he started talking, I farted. So the whole weekend, we're ripping, her included, are ripping on this guy, and it was her the whole time. And poor guy, he's just like trying to talk to us, and we're just like trying to like dodge this guy. But that was the first episode that I told like a really funny like personal story like that, and we had a 5-minute laugh attack, and I think that was like the first episode. Was like, oh my god, like people were rolling on the floor laughing, and that's when I was like, oh, it can be like really funny. We can have laugh attacks and people can really enjoy it. So I think that was my favorite episode because it was like the first laugh attack episode.
That's hilarious. Oh my god. So speaking about personal story, so I put on Instagram last week, Pammy also put it on Instagram last week. We wanted to ask people if they had questions for Pammy. We used pretty much all the good ones yesterday. So where are Jeevan and Sam? They right here. They came up with some like new questions for today. But we're gonna repeat one from yesterday because it's a good one. So I dropped a podcast episode for Brown Girl Guilt 2 weeks ago, and it was called My First Kiss Went a Little Like This, because this year we're exploring teenage fever, and so the entire episode is about my first kiss. And so somebody was like, we know Harpo's first kiss, and for those of you who haven't listened, my first kiss, I was 19, I was studying at SFU Burnaby. It was with this like, oh man, he was so cute, he was so tall. Very emotionally manipulative, so you can probably guess how handsome he was. But that was my first kiss, and so someone was like, oh, we want to know about Pammy's first kiss. So can you share your first kiss with us?
Yeah, I was like specific. I'm like, is this gonna be recorded? Because I'm not gonna tell it if it is. So make sure you guys cut it out of the thing. But so I was in grade 9, so I was 14. Right? 14. And it was this new guy who moved from BC, actually, one of y'all. And he was like the new guy, and he was like into basketball, and all the girls were like, oh my god, he's so amazing. And I had a crush on him, and he had a crush on me. And I was like, what? Why? I told a part of this story on the podcast, but one of my best friends at the time, she liked him as well, and she found out that he likes me. And she went behind my back and told people like, why does he like her? Like, she looks like a gorilla. And like, she was like the Godi Chitti, super light skin, brown hair, and I was like hairy and like, you know, like darker skin, so I don't know, she thought it was like an insult. And I'm like, yeah, but if he likes me, what does that say about you? Like, if I'm a girl, like, okay. So we ended up, there's this, so after grade 9, during the summer, there's this area called Coral Springs Beach House, and it's like a man-made like pond, and like it's like a gated thing. You have to like swipe your card. You have to like live there in order to go there. So yeah, I had my first kid at a members only club. Okay, guys. So like he like lives where he swipes his card. We go in, whatever, we kiss, and then I was like thinking. You see how I like quickly went over that. But I was thinking, I was like, what do I remember from that day? But I just remember being really self-conscious because this was pre-laser hair removal days. So I had like a dadi. Like I had like a full dadi, okay? And this guy was like willing to kiss me. And I'm thinking, like, all these girls like submitting like, oh, my fat roll, my stretch mark here, like, they will kiss you if you have a beard, okay? Like, they like you, they don't care. Yeah, those daddies deserve love too. Right? Yeah, 100%. But yeah, that was my first kiss story.
Love it. It's a great story. I love that. So there's 3 questions on here. They're so spicy. I love them.
Good. I'm scared.
They're great. No. So the first one is, what are your top red flags for people in the talking stage?
Oh, that's a good one. Love bombing. I feel like this one's.
Ooh, there's so like hums on that.
Yeah, because everyone's experienced it. I bet you. It's like I feel like for brown girls, it's especially like it's like a danger zone because when we start talking to guys, it's usually like later in life a little bit, and like the first time we talk to them is like, oh my god, a guy's being nice to me, and it's usually after we like wax our mustache and we have like a little bit of like a glow up, so and then we're already like in our late teenage years, and then any type of like affection or being nice that they show you, like we're like, oh my god, this is it, he's the one. like he's the one. So I feel like a lot of girls fall for that. But if they start love bombing you, like they're too affectionate, like I love everything about you, it's been 4 days. Like what? Like you have to be aware of that. Or like you're the type of girl that I've always wanted to marry, like week 2. What? Like no, like it's just, you know what I mean? Like you have to, I feel like that's a major red flag. And also just like expressing like, or asking weird questions like, what's your body count? A lot of guys do that early on. It's like, you don't know a single thing about me, and that's what you want to know. Like, why is that the one thing that you want to know right off the bat? Just things like that, just weird. Or even like someone who expresses like strong opinions right off the bat. Like, you know, like I feel like I get into a lot of political fights with guys when I talk to them online. I'm like, why are we having this conversation? Day one. Like, you know what I mean? So that's like another red flag for me.
Yeah. One of my biggest red flags, and I tweeted this once, such a golden tweet, is like the real pandemic is men who only talk about themselves on a first date. Yeah. If he hasn't asked you what your favorite color is in the first week, leave him.
Yeah, serious. Yeah, 100%. But a lot of girls like get shy and scared like on dates, and I feel like for me, like asking questions is like a way that I can like calm down. I'm like, yeah, you keep talking. This is great. I feel like I have more control. But yeah, if he never asks you questions, then it's definitely a red flag for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, next question. What's one piece of advice you have for brown parents who are raising their kids in Canada? What perspective do you think they're missing?
Based on my personal experience, like my parents were really strict when I was growing up, and I couldn't do anything. And I feel like even now, like when my mom talks to other parents, like she always says like, you have to like be friends with your kids. Like you really have to like, they have to know that they can trust you, because they're gonna do bad shit regardless. The only thing is that they're gonna lie to you about it. So I think if they just open up and just become friends with their kids, like life will be a lot easier. And if they are doing bad stuff, at least there's a higher chance that they'll know about it. So I think that's the big thing. Like a lot of like parents want to like hold their kids back and not let them do anything. And then if you do that and if you succeed and if your kids don't do anything, then when they are able to do something, they're gonna be like weirdos. Have you met like people who are like too sheltered? And you're just like, oh, you're so weird. Like they can't even talk, the limited social skills, like, and you know, they're more like, you know, maybe love bombing would work on them. Like too sheltered people are just like not it. So I feel like, yeah, that would be my one advice.
I think for me, I would have loved if my parents encouraged me to talk to boys younger.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Yeah.
Because then you get to like 25 and they're like, are you gonna get married? Vietnam? Do you have a boyfriend? Like now my dada and dadi literally ask me. My dada asks me all the time, friend Lapia? Do you have a friend? And I'm like, no, you didn't let me talk to boys until like 5 years ago. So how is that gonna happen?
100%. I always like blame being single. Like I'm like, you never let me talk to guys. My mom's like, it's not my fault. And she gets like so upset about it. I'm like, it's true, dude. Like I don't know how to talk to them. And like now I can obviously, but like back then it was just like, I was so intimidated by guys. Actually a few days ago when we were having dinner at Cactus, Ricky and Rajan and Kyle were there. It was me, Graveen, and 3 brown guys, right? And I got 3 messages from girls being like, I don't want to come up to you because I was so intimidated. There was 3 brown guys there. And I'm like, why do they do that? Like, they're just, like, we just look at them and we're just so scared of them. And like, I was talking to my cousin who's 19 and she was like, no, I'm not dating him. I'm just so intimidated by guys. And I'm like, they don't even wear deodorant. Like, why are we so intimidated by these guys? Like, we dress up, do our hair, do our makeup, like we do put in so much work. These guys don't even shower half the time, and we're like thinking like they're so crazy. But yeah, now I know that, but 20-year-old me was like not like that at all.
No, absolutely not.
But we should definitely like do more mixing of gender, you know? We should do that.
I told this story yesterday and I want to say it again because my cousin who I talked about it is actually here, but my dad, like, so he sat me and my girl cousins down when we were like 16 or 17 and he's like, you know, I don't want you guys to talk to boys, just don't have a boyfriend until you're 18. And so now when we go to like people's weddings all the time, every time he comes to our table and he's like, you guys are single because of me. I told you can't date in high school. It's like, Dad, did you really think that I was gonna marry someone from high school? That's literally not how life works. There's not a single guy in high school I would have married. So I'm good. Thank you for doing that. But he's so guilty. Every time he's like, oh, it's my fault. And we're like, no, it's not. Trust me.
I would be like, yes. Yes,
it is. Oh man. Okay, this one I've been waiting for. This one I've been really waiting for. So the question is, do you think it's a person's responsibility to make sure their friend doesn't end up with the loser?
This is a hard one. You guys know my thoughts on this, right? Like, of course. I don't know if it's your responsibility, but like you should, like you definitely should say something. But the more I talk to people, if your friend is in a relationship with someone and they're in love, you're done. Like, they are not getting out of it unless they think it's time to leave. And you can't pull someone out of something kicking and screaming. You just can't do it. All you can do is like give your opinion, like I don't know all this, but like there's a high chance that they're not gonna listen to you. So I feel like you just let them go through the motions, and then if it doesn't work out, then you can be like, I told you so. I would totally say that. I would totally be like, I told you so. Like, I'm not the type of person who's like, it's so good. I told you. I've been telling you. You didn't listen to me. So this is what happens. But I don't know if it's your responsibility. I think it's your responsibility to like be the shoulder for them to cry on. And you also can't force someone to do something they don't want to do. But I think you should give your opinion. But also you have to know what type of friend you have. Are they open to receiving that advice? Because if you have a friend and you know that they don't listen to anything that you say or you give, because this happens with the podcast too. I'm telling you guys all the time like what to do, like advice and stuff. You guys, half the people are not taking it. They're like, my fiance cheated on me, we just got roped. Like, do I break up with him? And I'm like, yes. And 3 months later, they're having a full like Sangeet event, and I'm like, what can you do,
I'm the opposite. My friends don't even send me their Bumble matches anymore because they're like, Harpo's gonna shoot them all down. I'll tell you why, okay? Like, there's something, okay, so my girlfriends and I, there's like 4 of us, we're pretty tight, and there's something, everybody knows this now about me in my friend group. There's no real science behind it. It's not an actual device, but we've coined it that Harpo has a fooduometer. We call it the fooduometer. Because when they send me a screenshot or they tell me, like, they show me some of their messages, I can tell right away if he's a foodu or not. Straight up.
It's pretty easy to tell, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, there again, no science behind it, no actual tool. I can just feel it. It's like an intuitive feeling. I'm like, he's a foodu. And so, like, now I feel like it's my responsibility to tell them.
Yeah.
But, like, he's not cool.
But they're not sending you stuff anymore.
No, they don't send it to me anymore.
Yeah,
so now I'm like, I'm like, oh guys, like I'll try to be less judgy, So I think it is like there's a balance to it, right? So
you should say something, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, especially if I know the person from beforehand, then I'm gonna say something, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So now I want to open it up to the crowd. If there's anyone here that wants to ask Pammy a question about anything that we talked about here today, or if there's anything that you wanted to ask her, now would be the time to really ask her and put her on the spot.
We should have like an anonymous room. You can like go back and ask a question and come back.
Put your submissions in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, feel free to just like shout out your question.
Would you ever consider doing a live podcast show?
I have, yeah. Like, so many people asked me yesterday, like have me, Gert Graveen, up on a stage and try to record live. I think, yeah, I would consider it. I think we're gonna do it. Just don't know when, but yeah, I would for sure.
Can I show you my Bumble profile?
Harpo's like, I don't know. That one was for you, bro. Do you want us to judge it? Oh, you messed up.
On a scale from 1 to 10. Any other questions? I feel like I saw a hand go up right there. Yeah.
What do you think of Mama Boys? And when do you think it's like...
Sorry, what? I didn't hear that.
Like Mama Boy?
Oh, Mama Boy, yeah.
Like, when do you think it's like too much? Like, what's your like take on that?
I feel like it's always too much. It's always too much. Like, I don't know. What do I think of Mama? Like, I feel like you can, obviously guys should like love their mom. Of course, they should do that. But if she's still washing your underwear and you're 30, like that's a problem. And so many people don't see that as a, actually I got a message, no, I'm just like, just filling up with tea. But there's a guy actually that DM'd me that released a video a few months ago that was talking about how he's like, I want to live with my parents and, because they raised me and the girl should move in with us. And, I want to take care of my parents and make sure she's not like the jalak type who's going to like pull you out and force you to leave or whatever. And he's like, we should do a podcast together. I'm like, yeah, we should. Because I'm just going to rip that guy to shreds. Okay, because like, what is that? Like, we we don't have parents that raised us. Like, we don't have that. Like, we don't have parents that we want to take care of. But, like, yeah, it's a huge problem. It's a massive problem. And it's so much of a problem that I had to start a second podcast about it called Meet the Outlaws. I had to start a whole second one to talk about how big of an issue it is.
Yeah, and that label of Jillock, just because, you know.
Yeah, it's like, girls want to live on their own, and, like, that's now we're, like, the witches or something. We're like the devil. Like, you should be like learning how to, like, you know, wash your bonde. What are you doing?
But what if he does, like, washing dishes, does laundry, but like calls his mom his best friend? Like, he does laundry, washes dishes, is independent, but like his mom is his best friend.
I don't think that's a problem. Is that a problem? I don't think it is. I think if he's independent, and, you know, like, he's independent, he doesn't, like, rely on them to where it's, like, affecting your relationship, but he loves his mom, and his mom's, like, his best friend. I don't think that's a problem. It depends on how best of a friend she thinks she is. Maybe that's what it is. You know what I mean? Like, it might be, like, the other way around. Like, if she thinks that she's, like, too up there, then maybe that might be an issue, but...
Yeah.
What's been your biggest learning curve from, like, starting a podcast?
Biggest learning curve, how much I can't handle criticism. That's the biggest learning curve, I think. I get like one negative comment and I'm like, I quit. No, I can't do this. I suck. People hate me. I'll get like 100 good ones. I need to learn how to like take everything with a grain of salt. I think I take things too seriously, and I'm learning that with the podcast, but so much so that like it was affecting me so much that I had to stop reading the anonymous form. So now I don't read it anymore. So my sister actually streamlines everything for me. So if she sees something in there that's like gonna trigger me, or a negative comment, even feedback that I'm not gonna like, and she knows I'm not gonna like it, she just deletes it all. So so the last 6 months have been great, because I'm like, everyone loves me, guys. But I had to do that because like I was on the phone with Graveen one day. It was like like 6 months ago. I was like, and I seriously was like, I'm gonna quit. Like, I can't do this. It was like, I had to like sit down and I had to ask her, I'm like, do you think like I should quit? Because I was just getting so down on myself and I didn't want to do it anymore. She's like, no, you need to get someone to delete that stuff for you before you even see it. So I had to do that. But yeah, I think that's my biggest learning curve, is just, I haven't even learned, so I'm not even know why I'm calling it a learning curve, but yeah, it's that.
Any other questions? Yeah, Michelle?
That's like a two-part one. So first part is not really a question, but my favorite episode was like, the first time I heard your podcast, I was driving back from Banff, and my cousin threw it on. It was an episode where Dirk was talking about what he thought pads were for.
How he thought you use them, yeah.
Like that one, I spit on my energy drink on the dash. It was crazy. So the question part of it is like, how did that happen with bringing him into the podcast and like?
Yeah, so he's always been like that guy. Like, how you hear him on the podcast is exactly how he is. And we've all been telling him for the longest time, like, you should do stand-up. Like, you need to do something like in comedy. But his comedy is rooted in roasting people, right? And making fun of people. So he can't do it, because whenever we would sit down and have a funny conversation, we're like ripping on someone in our life, right? So he can't publicize that. So the anonymous form is perfect for him, because he can rip on people and no one knows who it is. So it's perfect. But having him on, like, he's always been that funny guy, and I knew people would love to hear his like stories and how he like, you know, reacts to things and stuff. So I had him on one episode and the response was insane. It was insane, and now he's on every episode pretty much, I think. But yeah, that's how it was super like organic. I didn't plan it out or anything like that, but I have to have him on now. I can't like cut him out.
I know we talked about red flags before, but
Yeah.
like what are Coach P's deal breakers?
Deal breakers, I don't know if I have any. I'm so desperate. I was kidding. Deal breakers would be like
in the relationship, something happened, like for some people it's cheating, or like...
Oh, that's it right there. I talk about it all the time. Cheating, absolutely. I have a zero cheating, like no tolerance for it at all. Like, I don't care. Like, we can be 10 years deep. It's done. because I can't even handle a hate comment. How am I gonna hate like a cheating situation? And yeah, I just can't do it. That's a deal breaker for sure. And smoking cigarettes. I can't do that one. I'm sorry, man. You can smoke all the weed you want, but not cigarettes.
What got you into hair and makeup and bridal industry?
That was in 2012, and I was just like, I was like that girl like in high school that would wear like full liquid foundation to school with like eyeshadow and stuff. Like I always like loved it. And then I was like, oh, I just want to do something on the side. Like, you know, like every girl wants to be a makeup artist. So that was me. I was like, I want to be an MUA. And yeah, it was just like a random thing, but it blew up because in Calgary, it's not really like a big industry. So I was able to take it full time very quick. So that's kind of just like fell into it.
How'd you get Graveen into it?
Graveen moved there after she married Tony. You guys know that? She moved to Calgary, and her only friend that she knew in Calgary was my best friend, Shami, and that's how we met. And then I was working for a different company based out of BC, but they had a Calgary team. So, and then I was like, I need to leave, I want to start my own thing. And then she was like, I do makeup, and I was like, I do hair, and then we just like started doing it together. Yeah.
Would you ever move to Surrey?
No, I wouldn't. I know I should. I probably should, because like, all this stuff, like amazing stuff is going on here. There's nothing happening. Nobody cares about me in Calgary. Like no one cares. Like it's just not a big thing there. So everything's here. Like the culture is here. You guys have all this like creative stuff happening. But I thought about it, and the reason I probably won't ever move here is because it's because of the podcast. It's because it helps the podcast. So we're removed from your guys' area here, right? So when we say things, we say them like, oh, we're never gonna run into that person. So it's fine. So it's kind of like that. So there's a couple episodes back, I released an episode called Shirtless Baby Daddies. And we talk about a guy who like took his shirt off during a maternity shoot. And we ripped this guy for 20 minutes on the podcast. And while I was editing it, I called Graveen, and I do this all the time. I called Graveen and I was like, should I take this out? Because like, what if someone knows them, or like, what if they hear about it? Because it's like a pretty like, you know, prominent person here. And she's like, no, whatever, we're not gonna run into them. Where are we gonna run into them? I'm like, yeah, that's true. So like, I leave things like that in there, knowing full well that I'm not gonna run into these people. But if I was living here and there was a high chance I was gonna see them, half the stuff wouldn't be in the podcast, because I'm just like, we're just ripping on people, so.
Yeah, higher chances of getting jumped up if you were
100%. I was seriously concerned. I'm like, is this guy a gangster? Like, I had to like call someone who knows a lot of people, and I'm like, yo, find out if he's a gangster, because I'm not gonna leave it in. I was like, I don't know, like, you just don't know, right? So, but he's not, he just works like a regular job, so, yeah.
But did you say also like a gangster probably would have taken his shirt off in a maternity shoot?
Yeah. And then like, Graveen's like, gangsters are not doing shirtless photo shoots. I was like, oh yeah. So I was like, okay, yeah. But I'm just like waiting to be taken down. So just some anxiety, like going through the roof.
Yeah. We asked this yesterday, but do you want to spill the tea on the Shake episode?
Yeah, so I interviewed Shake from Love is Blind. Appropriate reaction, because he's exactly how he is on the show. He's a piece of shit. Like, he actually is. Like, we talked to him for 2 hours, and it was supposed to be a 45-minute thing. We talked to him for 2 hours. He just acts like he doesn't care, but he cares so much about what brown people think of him. And everything kept going back to that. Brown people hate me, Indian people hate me, I don't care. That's all. That was a 2-hour conversation. That's all it was. And then halfway through, I'm like asking him a question. He's like, I was having a great day until right now. And I was like, what the fuck, man? Like, how do you just say that? So like, it was just that. And then he has to sign like a release form in order for me to like release the episode, because I can't even edit someone's voice without them giving me permission to do it. So, and he has like PTSD from Netflix editing him to look really bad, which you are, so like, what are you mad about? But so he didn't sign that form, and I can't touch the audio until he does. And then one of the listeners messaged him and said, hey, like, you're not going to be on the podcast anymore. And he's like, oh, I guess they didn't want to put me on. And then he emailed me and said, hey, can you send me the episode? And I'm like, no, I need you to sign the release form. I was like, just sign it, I'll edit it, and I'll send it to you first. You can even approve it. And I never heard back from him. So it's sitting there, it's 2 hours, there's video too. This guy's losing his mind, he's standing up, like just like going crazy. And I'll probably only have 5 minutes of actual like stuff I could use, because the whole time he's like, this is off the record, this is off the record, this is off the record. And I'm like, it's on the record, you're saying it, it's on the record. Like, I'm sorry, like, what are you doing? Yeah, that was the shake stuff. Any other questions?
Well, I don't have a question. Actually, I want to thank you because, like, I come from a very, like, traditional household, and, like, you know, me and my brother both moved out for school and stuff. So, like, listening to your podcast reminds me very much of the relationship I have with my brother, which is, like, you and Burke, and, like, just, like, reconnecting. I think, like, the first episode I ever listened to, like, I laughed so hard, and then I cried after, and I called my brother. I was like, yo, you gotta listen to this podcast. This is so awesome. And then it was just so funny. It was because I was telling my best friend and my mom, and it was like, you know what? This is connection. This is community, because we all connect. We all feel.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I was talking to Bav about that, and she was saying the exact same thing. She's like, I feel like I'm listening to my siblings. And then someone else told me, they're like, I got closer to my brother because of the podcast, because now we both listen to it and we have something to talk about. So I was like, wow, that's crazy. I'm changing families. Look at that, you really are a family therapist. Changing everyone's life but my own. There's a question in the back there.
Curious to know what your advice would be for anyone that's starting a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's so many young girls, growing women that are wanting to start their podcast. I think Harpo is a great example to have in our city. But even for, I feel like even for someone like us, like when we're starting our businesses or whatever it is, we're like, you do it very effortlessly. But for someone that's starting something new, whatever that could be, even if it's not a podcast, what would be that advice? The number one thing, even if you could explain it in a word.
I'll give you 2 words: obsession and consistency. I feel like I don't even think you have to have talent to be successful. You just have to be obsessed and consistent. Like, as long as you have those 2 things, you will succeed at anything that you do, 100%. And with regards to podcasting, there's like a crazy stat that's like most podcasts fail after 3 episodes, because people stop because they don't get the numbers, they get discouraged, and then they stop. And had I done that after 3 episodes, we wouldn't be sitting here. This podcast didn't pop off till 2 years after. So for 2 years, I've been posting an episode every single week, and I don't stop. And that's the only reason. That's the only thing. You can't stop. You have to be obsessed with what you want in life. And that's the only way, in my opinion. You don't even have to be talented. You really don't. You don't have to be. You just have to be obsessed with learning a skill set to get you somewhere.
Just a follow-up, was that obsession driven by like you want to be successful, or was it more like you want to reach millions, or what drove that obsession to do it week after week, even though you didn't have the listeners you wanted?
It was seeing the numbers go up every week, even if it was 50, 100. Seeing this chart go up every single week, that was there's only one time I missed an episode, and that was because I was I think I had COVID before COVID was a thing. And I missed an episode that week, and I got 20 messages from people where's the episode, where's the episode? I'm like, oh my God, people care? So yeah, I haven't missed an episode since that, but I think the driving factor was just the people that were expecting it, and then I was seeing the numbers go up every single week. And there are periods, when COVID first hit, the pandemic hit, numbers dropped crazy, you guys, for months. My chart was up like this, and then it was plummeting to the ground. I was like, oh my God, this is so bad. But it's because that time period, all the media that we were consuming was COVID related. So if it wasn't something COVID related, no one was listening or watching. But I still kept going, because I'm okay, it's going up a little bit, 20 more this week. Okay, we'll keep going up. But yeah, it was a numbers thing, for sure.
Kind of follow-up question. So a few years ago, if someone was to start like a podcast or become a makeup artist, an influencer, you could be a pioneer because we didn't have as much like connectivity. But today I feel like there's this fear that it's already been tried and tested, someone's already out there doing that. So what's your advice to people wanting to start something new, but thinking that way?
I feel like you can't think like that. And Harpo made a very great point about brown people specifically being scared of this. Like, if one brown person is doing it, we're like, that's it. There can only be one of that person. Like, why do we think like that, right? Like, it shouldn't be like that. Don't ever think like that. Like, because when you look at like white people, there's thousands of comedians, there's millions of podcasts out there, there's millions of makeup artists. Like, why do we feel like if only one brown person is doing it, that's it? Because Harpo and I were pitted against each other at first. Like, people were like, oh, Coach P podcast, but then there's Harpo just doing a podcast, like, blah, blah, blah. Like, why can't we both just have podcasts? Like, what's the big deal, right? So we need to stop thinking like that. Like, I don't think we should think of it as like you have to be a pioneer. If anything, you should be like, oh, this person has done it, it's possible. This person can do this full time, sick. That means that there's a market out there. And I honestly used to think that success was like limited. I used to really think that. And when I started listening to people who are very successful, and they started saying like, once you realize that there's an infinite amount of success out there, everybody can have it, you will just flourish because you'll start collaborating with people and working with more people, and that's how you grow. So I don't think of it like you have to be a pioneer of something. Just do what you want to do and be obsessed and consistent, and you'll win.
Yeah, if I could add to that, it's actually a very colonial construction to say that there can only be one of us, right? So when we already have a Beyonce, we already have a J-Lo, and then we have a Rihanna as well, but nobody is like, there can't be another Dua Lipa. Or like, like there's so many people available in the Western context, but when it comes to people of color, brown people, we're often told like, well, you already have a Ruby Core, you don't need another one. But it's a very, very colonial construct to say that there can only be one of you. And it's true, like, when I first started the Brown Girl Guild podcast, everyone used to pit me against the Coaches Don't Play podcast, and yet here I was like being tagged in the same story as the Coaches Don't Play podcast, and I used to get so jazzed about it. I'd be like, oh my God, like it's in the same sort of field. And it was up to the both of us. Like I reached out to Pammy and I was like, hey, like I want to get you involved in 5X. I don't know in what capacity yet, and we set up like monthly meetings. We would have like a monthly Zoom for a very long time just to get to know each other, and then eventually this event came out of those monthly meetings. But we could have easily just been like two aunties and been like, man, 100%. Could have so easily been aunties about it, right? But 100%. We were like, no, we're gonna do this together, because it's just so much more fruitful when you both do it, when all of us do it all together at the same time. So yeah, yesterday I mentioned, I was like, the next podcast is gonna pop off in like Surrey is gonna be the one where it's a brown girl that has a full sex podcast. That's the one. So if anyone wants to do that, take the shit there for doing that. That's the one. Yeah, that's a really good question actually. Yeah. Any other questions? We have time for like maybe like two-ish more.
Yeah, I'm gonna say my favorite episode was Cringe UK Fling.
Oh,
Now is something I reference a lot.
Yeah,
It's a one-liner. That's my favorite one-liner of yours. Do you have any other like UK-related stories, like anything?
Like that guy? No, he was a unique guy, you guys. He was a very unique guy, friend and all. I don't know, not like UK specific. I used to be obsessed with UK guys at one point. I think we all did. We all had like a UK guy phase, right? Why is that? Yeah. They had like that hair, like that weird like hair, and then, I don't know, that accent that now I find disgusting after the friend and all. But no, I actually don't have anything. I swore off all UK people after that. That was it. I was done.
Another thing was, I love the t-shirts, by the way. Oh, thank you. And one of my favorite one-liners I think would make a good t-shirt idea is, I love it when you and Girk say chulfer.
Yeah, chulfer? Chulfer? Yeah, chulfer is a great one-liner. They say it actually so much that Girk has a smiley friend, and he doesn't know what like chulfer means, but they'd say it so much, and they were like in a WhatsApp group one time, and he wrote chill fur, like F-U-R. They're like, what's that? He's like, you don't like chill fur. You guys always say chill fur. Like, yeah, that's a great tagline, yeah, for sure.
Speaking of merch, do you have an idea when you might release some more later this year?
Yeah, I think in the summertime. Wait, it is the summertime. Never mind. Like end of summertime. Yeah, there's gonna be a merch shop every year for sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
So last question. Make it a spicy one. Does anyone who hasn't spoken yet? Yeah.
I guess, because like, the Brown People Network is so strong, and like if you've talked about certain people on the podcast, has it ever come back to you personally and created drama? And like they're personally like, oh, why the hell did you say that?
Oh, that's a great question. It has? Oh yeah. Should I tell them the story? Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Okay,
You should tell us the story.
So my second project, Meet the Outlaws, where I wanted to start this podcast to talk about like in-law specific or like daughter-in-law, just like expectations of like women. And I had this girl on the podcast. It was the second episode. It got the most downloads. Okay, it got me on the trending on worldwide charts. Okay, that episode. And it was her story about how she married the first guy that she dated. And it was because like she's like, I've never dated a guy before, and it was the first guy that I dated, and he was nice to me, and he was from a good family, he has a good job, so I was like, yeah, whatever, this is it. And it ended up being like a very bad situation, and they got divorced. So she goes through that story, and that was like the premise, like she's an outlaw because she's divorced, right? And she was from Edmonton, and Edmonton is a very small town, so that episode got released, and everybody heard it. Everybody heard it. And I got bombarded with messages from that family, like threats. Take it down, we're gonna take legal action, even though we did everything to prevent any type of legal action to actually work. So like, she didn't say names, and she didn't say actual facts, anything that he did to her. It was more like her feelings in the relationship and what actually like happened, the aftermath, and how people in the community reacted to her, right? But because it's like a small place, like people like started talking and spreading it. So they threatened legal action, and I got in touch with like media lawyers, like massive dudes that work for like CBC Media Law, and they're like, they don't have a case, but they can take you to court. If they look, anyone can take you to court for anything. They can try to sue you. So I was ready to go. Like I was like, let's go. You don't want anyone to know about this? Let's get it on public record, buddy. Like, let's go. Like people don't realize that, right? It's like they say they'll sue you because you're saying something about them, but it's like, okay, let's go. Then we'll have it publicly out there exactly what you did. But she was like, I don't want to go through this whole thing again, so I had to take the episode down, so it's not there anymore. But now she's the host of that new podcast, so fuck that guy. Yeah, she's gonna be hosting it now, moving forward.
That's crazy, man. You were just out here trying to tell the truth.
No, man, I was just trying to tell her experience and stuff, and people getting all mad about it, but don't be an asshole then,
Just don't be that, yeah. Well, unless anyone has like a burning question that they want to ask, we are at the end. Yes, no? Speak now. Yeah?
Did you ever do stand-up?
No, I would never do stand-up comedy. No. That's so hard to do because you have to make fun of like hard topics. And we just make fun of like Harbudge and Mon. And like easy people to pick on. Real issues. But like, no, I feel like that's yeah, I feel like that would be really hard. Maybe like later in life, but I doubt it. I don't think so. I like podcasting. Maybe acting. I don't know. Does someone put me in a movie or something? I'm down.
We know you like Diljit. So.
Yeah, I do love Diljit.
I was just gonna ask, would you do a movie with her, Benjamin?
Oh, 100% I would do a movie with Harbudge.
So easy to do when you live in Surrey.
Only if he plays like a 20-year-old guy though.
Oh, easy. He'll do it. No problem.
100%.
Very easy. Well, I think I can speak on behalf of everyone here in this room. We love you so much. You're hilarious.
Thank you.
And you're such a star. And it's been such an honor. I've been saying this to Pammy for a very long time, but it's just such an honor to be able to host your first ever Surrey event, and to have you in this context to like really strip it down to make it so comfortable and raw for you. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I wouldn't have come out here if it wasn't for these guys. I would have been still in Calgary, like.
Yeah. And we want to show you how much we love you. So on behalf of 5X, Jeevan, we want to give you some flowers.
Wow.
I know you're going back home tomorrow. You can't like take them on a plane.
No, 100%. I've never gotten flowers before. It's a grateful grad. I got flowers, but that's about it.
Yeah, we just wanted you to know how loved you really are.
Oh, thank you. It's okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
We can be in here until about 8, so hang around, yeah.